Welcome to episode 52 of the Mental Dietitian Podcast. I'm your host, Ahren Lynch-potter. I've been doing this for a year. Today marks week 52, episode 52, and what a journey it's been. I've had my doubts, I've had ups, I've had downs. Life has happened. Life has been interesting since I started this podcast. There's a lot that has happened. I'm so grateful for all of it. It's been a hell of a journey so far, and I feel like I'm just getting started. I feel like I could give so much more to this podcast. And I know that I have got a lot of feedback from people that they really enjoy it. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for those who have listened to every single episode, for those of you who have just started listening, for those of you who came across this accidentally. I really appreciate you. And I hope that what I have said and the subjects that I've spoken about and the guests I've had on have really helped you and helped your perspective about life and helped you understand life a little bit differently and things like that. Today's episode, I didn't really have a theme, to be honest. I just wanted to hit record and just say that and say thank you and see where this goes. Now, I know last week I spoke about being true to yourself, and ever since I had that episode happen, oh boy, what a week I had. Probably the most stressed I've been in a very, very long time. A bunch of shit went sideways at work. And then I've been sick the last few days. I had a jiu-jitsu match on the weekend, which ended in a draw. I thought I won. I totally won. But for some reason, it was a draw because it was submission only, which means there was no submissions. I've had these ups and downs. Like in this past week, there's a lot that has happened. And just going off last week's theme of like, you can't lose if you're being true to yourself. I've kind of had the opportunity to show that. And it reminds me, there's this Christian quote, and I'm going to butcher it, but basically it says like, I asked God to make me strong, so he gave me struggles to overcome. It's just like, well, I asked life to be strong, an opportunity to be strong. It's like, well, here's some challenges that you need to overcome. And let's see if you really are the man you think you are. And that's the thing about life. It's always throwing things at you. It's always throwing things at you, and it's just about your perspective. If you truly believe that life happens for you, not to you, then it gives you this level of freedom based on your perspective about the world that it's unmatched. I choose to believe that life happens for you and not to you. Even if you have some really horrible things happen, even if you have some really great things that happen, even if you make a lot of money and you lose all that money, or if you have an amazing relationship and you screw it all up, it's all happening for you, not to you. And yeah, there's just been a lot that's happened. I don't even really know where to begin, but all the stuff I spoke about last week about life punishing you for not being true to yourself, it's all true. It's actually, as soon as I shared that message, life was kind of like, oh, really? Is that what you believe? Well, let's test what you really believe, and I'm going to throw a bunch of shit at you, and we'll see how you emotionally respond to it. And I had a very stressful week, and I think that's what made me sick, which just kind of made me think how many people are living out there in the world with just really heightened cortisol levels, like all the time, and it makes them sick. Probably lots of people. A lot of people are battling all kinds of stuff, and it's because they're in environments or doing things that they shouldn't be doing, or they're not really being true to themselves, and their cortisol level is spiked, or there's all this shit going on. Yeah, and it's just amazing how one stressful week can damage my immune system to the point where I feel like I've been sick and just not feeling 100%. I've been moving a lot slower than I normally do. And it just goes to show that if you if you take the time to rest and really make sure that you listen to your body, if you're feeling sick, if you're really stressed, don't keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. I did that for years and years and years. And now I'm turning 31 this year, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to move a little bit slower this week. I'm not going to get up at 5:30, 6 a.m. in the morning. I'm going to get up at 7:38 because I need the sleep. I need the rest. I love myself. I care about myself. I value my rest. I am not a robot. You don't need to earn your rest. It's not an earned thing. It's not this thing like, oh, now I can rest. It's like, no, you have to rest because that's what's part of being a human being. And if you really care about yourself, take the time to rest, take the time to slow down if you feel like you need to. And there's been seasons in your life where you're like, you know what, I got to go hard right now. I've got to push hard. I've got to put this effort in. Yeah, like, how could I sum up the last week and some lessons I've learned? Here's one. And I know that I've shared this with you in the past. There was a long time where I'd put other people before myself, and it had manifested its way in a number of ways that could have really hurt me, have really hurt me, and could really hurt Lexi and our relationship and our financial health. And well, because I had a client that wanted something and I really cared about them, and I heard their story and I was like, you know what, I will do something. And I didn't even realize I was doing it. I will do something that could jeopardize my career and my job to help this person. And there's a lot to that. And I thought I'd kind of overcome that. But last week, I basically did it again, which jeopardized my job, and I put somebody else before myself. And it was just another lesson of like, you know what? You think you've done all this deep inner work, which I have. I'm not going to discount that, but there's still a lot more to do and a lot more to be aware of. And it made me realize how ignorant we are and how we all have blind spots. And it's like, well, how do I find my blind spots? It's like, well, life will reveal them. Relationships around you will reveal them. Circumstances will reveal them. And I was shown last week how ignorant I am about certain things, and how that ignorance can really, really hurt you because you're not aware of it until shit hits the fan. You're like, oh my God, I didn't even see it like that. That's why you need good people around you. You need solid people around you that can help you when you get stuck, when things are going sideways, when you can't see the forest from the trees, kind of, you're just like in the muck and mire of it. And you're just like, shit, man. You need that person or that perspective to be like, hey, you're not seeing this. And it was very humbling. It almost cost me my job. I felt very humbled, and I felt like, it's funny. I talk about this podcast and like, I might sound smart and I might come across some really good thoughts. And then I have a week like last week and I'm like, any ego you may have, or any not even confidence, but it makes you humble, and it kind of brings you back down to earth. And I think it's good every once in a while to get a little bit of an ego check, so you never get too big for your bridges, so to speak. You never get too big for your boots. And yeah, that's one of the lessons of like, my trauma from my past still is affecting things and affecting my work and things like that, where I put other people before myself. It's just like, well, why would I do that? Well, it's because deep down there's something that thinks that you're not worth that, or you should put other people before yourself, because if you make these other people uncomfortable, then they won't love you. And there's all this stuff I'm working on right now, and I'm kind of navigating it. I was talking about it last week on my podcast. Another thing that I wanted to share was I had a jiu-jitsu match on Saturday night. And it was against this guy. I didn't actually know who I was going against. I chose not to look at my opponent, or because what I've done in the past, I've gone on their Instagram, I've compared myself to them. I'm like, oh, that guy looks good. He looks strong. And I've defeated myself before I even stepped on the mat. This time I just showed up. It was a cool little local Vancouver Jiu-Jitsu League event where all the gyms get together and the gym owners will text the other gym owners and be like, hey, I got a blue belt, I got a purple belt, he's this weight. They want to compete in this rule set, and they organize a match. And it's just interesting. What I was practicing and what I was working on is like trying not to overthink it, and really watching the stories that my brain will tell me leading up to this event. And there were some crazy ones. Even driving there, part of my mind was telling me things like, well, what if you broke your leg? Which is a risk. And there was a guy that, I don't know if he broke his ankle there or he snapped his ligaments in his ankle, but something bad happened, and it was just a white belt, and he didn't tap, and that's what happens. There was all these things like, well, what if he took you down and you broke your neck and you couldn't walk ever again? There was all these things going through my head, and I was like, wow, this is resistance. I'm butting up against it. And a lot of people butt up against these things of trying anything new. It could be going to the gym. They might have this story of like, well, what if I hurt myself at the gym and then I couldn't go to work, I couldn't make money, and I couldn't feed my kids, and I can see those stories, and it none of it's real. It's all this facade, all this story that I don't know where it comes from, but what I think where it comes from is that human beings aren't made to thrive necessarily. Our minds try to keep us alive, just surviving. That's why people can smoke for 20, 30, 40, 60, 70 years, because the body can endure so much. It can endure so much, and we're just kind of made to survive. We're constantly seeking out negative news and things like that in our minds because it's a bias. It's constantly checking out danger. We're constantly looking at the weather. We're constantly looking at where we're driving, things like that. It's like we have this underlying program that's always watching for dangers. So when you purposely put yourself in danger and purposely put yourself in uncomfortable situations, you really get to watch what comes out, what bubbles up, just to protect you. And what we need to be really aware of is not to believe these stories. Now, was that a risk of, yeah, have people broken their necks doing jiu-jitsu? Yes. Have people broken their legs, torn ligaments? Yes. All of that is true. All of it is 100% true. But if I just go in there and be in the moment and make sure that I'm as safe as I possibly can and don't let my ego get in the way of me tapping if I need to, then I'll be okay. And it was a fun match. It ended up in a draw. Like I said, I thought I won, but it was a good experience, and I felt so good afterwards. I felt so good that I put myself in an uncomfortable situation, which just brings me back to how important it is to purposely put yourself in uncomfortable situations. If you're not constantly kind of pushing the threshold of being uncomfortable, whether or not that's going in the cold or exercising or going in the hot in a sauna or something like that, or doing some kind of martial art or some kind of maybe doing some kind of public speaking, or you want to be an actor, or you want to, whatever it may be, doing classes for something, going to a yoga class, like going to a cooking class, anything that is uncomfortable, anything that you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. We can have these daily practices that get to work on that get to stretch that. And every single time, it's like I have amnesia, and I know that you could probably relate to this. Anytime we do something uncomfortable and we come out on the other side of it, it's like playing a video game almost. It's like self-respect points go up. You gained 10 self-respect points. You gained 12 self-love points. It's like you get to gain this HP playing the game of life because you're constantly putting yourself in these uncomfortable situations and constantly just pushing the needle a little bit as best you possibly can every single day. And that can come in different ways. Last week, it came in the opportunity for me to handle massive amounts of stress, and I was potentially on the hook for $40,000, and it ended up working out. I have to pay back some of that money because of some shit that went sideways at work, but I got to watch myself handle these situations and deal with these and control my own nervous system. I was really making sure I was breathing. Okay, I'm not going to let my breath go into this anxious, these shallow breath kind of states. I'm going to breathe into my stomach. All these tools I've learned, all these things that I've learned over the past few years of doing this work on myself, of bringing myself back to center. And if I'm good in here, in my body and in my mind, nothing externally can shake my tree. If your roots are deeply embedded, nothing can shake your tree. Nothing. Doesn't mean you won't feel it on the inside. It doesn't mean it's not real. It just means that the more uncomfortable things that you go through or you purposely put yourself through, next time something happens, you have these brownie points. You have all this evidence from the past of like, hey, you've done this before. You've been here before. You can get through this. That's why I think doing uncomfortable things every single day, even on you're microdosing discomfort. Try and microdose discomfort every single day, whether it's through exercise, doing something that's like a cold shower, or going for a walk outside, or having an uncomfortable conversation with somebody. If you microdose discomfort every single day, when the big waves of life comes, you've been working on the ripples. You've been working on these ripples every single day. So when the big waves come, it's just an amplified version of those little ripples of discomfort that you're feeling every single day. So I hope this helps, guys. I hope this really, really helps. I love you guys so much. Episode 52. We've been doing this for a year. And I'm looking forward to doing it for another year. Love you guys. Talk to you next week.